Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Laura Ha-Reisman. I am the Assistant Director here at the Undergraduate Research Center, Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. And I have the pleasure today of moderating the Creating New Knowledge panel. This panel is a roundtable of undergraduate students coming from very different disciplines, from humanities, arts, and social sciences, but also in the STEM areas as well. So we really look forward to the conversation today, and we hope that you are also looking forward to this as well. Along with that, before we begin, I also wanted to go ahead and do a land acknowledgement. And as a land grant institution, the Undergraduate Research Centers at UCLA acknowledges our presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. So now, without further ado, I would like to go ahead and begin our panel. We will start with introductions by our panelists, moving on to a discussion that will encompass a variety of topics around creating new knowledge as junior scholars. Thank you.
Science with a minor in community engagement and social change. And I am studying the social justice and community engagement change minor. And for fun on the weekends, I like to read, hang out with my friends, and studying for the LSAT too.
Okay, great. Next, we have Vivek.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is Vivek. I'm a second-year molecular cell developmental biology major, just MCDB. I'm in a couple of clubs that are cancer related, like Bruins Fighting Pediatric Cancer, Disabled Student Union, American Cancer Society. And for fun, I like playing Clash of Clans, and my favorite food is Taco Bell.
Great. All right, Leah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leah, and I am a fourth-year student. I majored in psychology, and I minored in public affairs and environmental systems and society. And my research area is interdisciplinary honors. And outside of school, I enjoy surfing, and I'll popcorn to Chloe.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Chloe. I'm a graduating third year this year. I'm majoring in psychobiology and minoring in neuroscience. My field of research is cognitive neuroscience. And besides my academic pursuits, I'm on the UCLA Dragon Boat team, and I'm also really involved in the Southeast Asian community.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chiagoziém Okonkwo. I am a third-year psychology major, and I'm minoring in film, television, and digital media. My research is in the psychology field, and what I enjoy doing outside of school is making films and going to the gym. But I guess like film is also part of like my academics now. I just got into the film minor, so yeah. But
Great. All right, so let's get into our brief 5-minute presentations from everyone. So we're gonna get started with Sara first. Sara, ready?
I am, yeah. So to briefly kind of talk about my project, it's called Humanizing Conversations on Houselessness Through Storytelling, Developing a Higher Education Community Engaged Curriculum to Create Social Change. And what this means is basically combating the misconceptions about homelessness and houselessness, and sort of what this means on the student scale level. And my research question is seeing what can higher education do in institutions? What can we do together to kind of create new knowledge and changing the narratives on houselessness through storytelling and the development of general education curriculum? The methodologies that I used for my research field was mixed methods. I conducted semi-structured conversational interviews with undergrad researchers. I did PhD candidates, activists in the Los Angeles area, and with my community partner, Invisible People, we created a transcript that will be translated over to be like helping us create the general education template. And I was also interviewing general education board members to kind of get an idea of like, how can we create this curriculum on campus? And the goals for us doing the next steps of this project is filling out a general education template, working with local organizations on campus to get guest speakers. For every week, we will go into a different topic, kind of exploring the external and internal factors that contribute to homelessness, and how can we get students like politically motivated as well. So learning about what it means with the local agency levels, how can we get students registered to vote, and kind of understanding the different complexities of this complicated issue and the policies that are also harming our unhoused community members. And at the end of this research project, I will be submitting a general education template for the UCLA's general education board to properly review. And afterwards, I'll get some feedback and seeing what corrections that I need to be made in order to officially submit this, and finding a professor to take this course on.
Okay, great. All right, Sara, let's move on to Vivek.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen. All right. You guys see this okay? Yeah, all right, so let me start my timer. So my project is utilizing both adaptive and innate components of the immune system to target CD19 positive tumor cells. And that's really a mouthful, so let's break it down a little. And we'll go through it really briefly. So just as a background, my project is focusing against cancer cells, and specifically blood cancer. So these are cells that have genetic mutations that result in abnormal and uncontrolled growth. And where the mutation happens decides what type of blood cancer it is. So a mutation of myeloid stem cell would lead to acute myeloid leukemia. The one that I'm working with is in the B cell, which is a part of the white blood cells, called B cell lymphoma. And the treatment options are really severe as of now. So there's chemotherapy, radiation, transplants, and what my project focuses on is targeted immunotherapy. So what does this mean? So first, to understand this, the way that our immune system, at least our adaptive immune system, targets tumor cells is by detecting surface proteins. So these are proteins on the surface of tumor cells called antigens. And that's composed of a major histocompatibility complex attached to a small peptide sequence. But the main idea is it's an antigen. And our T cells, which are immune cells, have receptors that can bind to this and activate an immune response. But the problem with tumor cells are that they don't always have these antigens present. So our T cells in our immune system aren't always able to detect them. So my project focuses on how do we make sure that the tumor cells are still being able to be detected and don't escape, what we call something called tumor escape. So what we did was we targeted B cell lymphoma because that's just been widely studied and we know a lot about it. And we engineered an induced pluripotent stem cell, meaning an embryonic stem cell, which is grown in the lab. And stem cells mean that these are cells that can turn into any type of cell in your body. So what we did was we have this induced pluripotent derived T cell where we have a T cell receptor that's specific to the antigen, so it can recognize the tumor cell if it's abnormal. But if it's lost its antigen, then we have another receptor that binds to another surface marker called CD19. And what CD19 is, this is a protein that's found on B cells, and it's highly expressed in B cell lymphoma, meaning that let's say the tumor escape happens and the antigen is lost, then we have another receptor there that can go ahead and detect that B cell and still say, wait, this cell has CD19, so I should activate an immune response and kill this cell. And this immune response we're activating through an NK activating signal pathway, which is for natural killer cells, which is part of your innate immune system. And it's derived from evolution. So these are the results we have so far. It's just preliminary findings. And the way you can interpret these is that NK9 is our engineered cell. So in our negative control, in the bottom left corner, you can see that 96.4% of our cells don't express or activate, which is a good thing because we don't want it to activate against healthy cells. And then our positive control with CD19 positive, meaning tumor cells that show CD19, which is the protein we're targeting, that we have over 2/3 of our cells actually activating. So this is proof of concept to say that, our engineered cell is actually working and killing those CD19 tumor cells or activating this. So what does this mean? Well, really, this is just a project where we're working towards a chemo-free future where immunotherapy can provide such a specific treatment that it can save potential kids and patients in the future from dangerous side effects from like chemotherapy. And the ultimate goal is that no other kid has to flip a coin to decide whether they wake up the next day like I did. All right, and before I conclude, I want to give a shout out to my lab group because my presentation would not have been complete without them. These are diagrams that I have learned from and that I've been really fortunate to be in a lab where I have mentors that support me with this project. So I just want to include them with it.
Great, thank you. All right, Leah.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see this now? Great. I'm just going to jump into it. So my name is Leah, and I researched feelings of uncertainty in the times of COVID, climate change, and handheld digital spaces. So my research project consists of 2 parts. Part 1 was digital. So this was a document that I wrote that compiled poetry and interviews and images and essays and background research. And part 2 is physical, and that's an event that is an art exhibition that opens tonight at 6 p.m. if anyone wants to come. And both of these parts of the project were based on 15 interviews that I conducted across Los Angeles, spanning from Malibu to Glendale to Venice and Silver Lake, and many interviews in the UCLA area. And I created this map to show the spatial distribution of those interviews. What I asked people in these interviews is, can you tell me about a recent time that you experienced feelings of uncertainty? And then I would probe them to get more out of that question and hear more about their experience. And then I would shift gears and ask them, what was the pandemic like for you? And then I would probe them to say, can you please tell me more about that? And then I would switch gears again and say, what comes to mind when you think about climate change? And then I would probe them again to know how their perceptions of climate change impact their behavior and their emotions. And then I would switch gears one last time to ask them, can you tell me about what your relationship with your smartphone is like? Which I originally referred to as handheld digital spaces. Those terms are interchangeable throughout this project. And ultimately, I was curious to explore how are these experiences of time interconnected with each other, between the people that I interviewed and with myself and my own experiences with these large topics. So I was really focused on this variable of time. What I mean by that is I interviewed people whose ages ranged from 20 to 86 years old. Here you can see the age of each person I interviewed, as well as the pseudonym I assigned to them, which is the name that they are referred to with throughout my writing and throughout the quotes in the exhibition. And here you can see how I overlaid images of human evolution on top of my graph. And this is an art piece that is opening tonight at 6 p.m. And it's meant to address how the theory of evolution has shaped how we view time and view adaptations to change over time. And as the rate of change of technology has really increased and the rate of climate change has increased, our ability to adapt to these changes over time may also change and may even threaten that theory of evolution. these are some other graphs that I made that are in the written portion, and then I overlaid these questions in the physical portion, which again opens tonight, and they just show these variables of gender, because most people I interviewed identified as female, and then this variable of temporality of uncertainty. So whereas gender was self-declared, temporality was just determined whether people described a situation of uncertainty that occurred in the past or the future. But a lot of this project was exploring just perceptions of time, in the sense that we don't need to view it as a binary of past or future or present. It could be more circular, which is, I'll get into that in a moment. But yeah, this is the part one, which begins with this poem that I wrote called Things I'm Scared Of. There's poems throughout the interview summaries that are dispersed. And this was really focused on handheld digital spaces and the ways in which, sorry about that, algorithms and social media and different servers have affected our presence and our expectations in digital and physical spaces. But I knew that reading that and accessing that information is a very specific kind of knowledge that requires looking at a screen. So I wanted to create knowledge that people could engage with without looking at a screen, which is why I created part two, which is this art exhibit opening tonight, and it's multimedia. So it incorporates pieces with paintings, collages, sculptures, textile, poetry, digital art, and all these mediums are unified by these themes of time. And I also include the medium of live performance, because I will be speaking and performing a poem. And here you can see another art piece that I created, which poses another question to the viewer: when will it stop? Which is rhetorical, because neither time nor trash are likely to stop. This shows the pseudo clock that I made with the laser cutter, but it says slow down now instead of having numbers. Here's some other sculptures of repurposed trash and materials. And again, I want to 5-minute mark. Okay, yeah. Yeah, this is my project. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Sorry to cut you off. All right. We could talk more though. So Chiagoziém.
Can you guys see my screen? Yep. Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Chiagoziém, and my project is looking into the Igbo tribe of Nigeria. I'm just gonna go like straight into like the context. So in Nigeria, there are 3 major languages and cultural groups, but they're actually in total over like 250. There are over 250 in total, but there are 3 major ones, and the 3 major ones are Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo. I noticed as I grew older that a lot of Igbo people my age were not able to speak and understand Igbo, but when it came to the other culture groups, the 2 other major ones, Hausa and Yoruba, they were able to. So I wondered like why that was the case. And I was a part of this research program called Research Rookies last year. And in that program, I wanted to answer the question of like, why is there a generational language barrier among Igbo people? But my graduate mentor was like, oh, hold on, like that's root cause analysis. It's really, really complex, very complex question to answer. And it would be good to focus on something correlational to start with. And so I was like, language, like I'm still very interested in Igbo language. And going off of like my own experiences, being shamed in a sense for not being able to speak my language, even though like a lot of people my age aren't like exposed to it as much as they should be to be able to learn it. So I started wondering like what would then be the relationship between how well someone is able to speak Igbo and how they feel they belong or don't belong among like other Igbo people. So that led me to my question, which I just said. And I hypothesized that like the less proficient an Igbo person is at speaking Igbo, the less they would feel like they belong among other Igbo people. and like vice versa, more or less. So for my project, I sought out like my participants from this group called Umu Igbo Unites, which has several chapters across America. And Umu Igbo Unites, a cultural promotion group for Igbo people living in the US. And they have chapters like in New York, Atlanta, the tri-state, Houston, yeah, just all over really. I think they have like 11 chapters total. And I also reached out to university students and I reached out to university students through there are these organizations called like Nigerian Student Associations, and there's like Black student unions, African student unions. And so I'm reaching out to them to get participants for my research. So this research, it has three methods. It's a mixed method study. So I have a survey, I have my focus groups, I also have one-on-one interviews. I recently got IRB approval, so it's like still in progress, but the variables that I'm using are, so my variables are Igbo language proficiency, and it's going to predict the sense of belonging that Igbo people feel to their culture. And I'm using Qualtrics for my surveys. And yeah, so the focus groups as well. So the focus groups and interviews will provide like a more in-depth
things about this, but technically they
will provide, yeah, sorry. And the focus groups are gonna be with like 2 to 3 participants, and then I would be like facilitating them, and then the interviews are one-on-one. So far, so this is the data collected as of early May. And I had like about 13 valid responses. And as you can see, like most of the responses are female and younger people so far. I also had used Qualtrics, like I mentioned, and for the statistical analyses, I used this software called SPSS, which is really annoying, but also kind of fun. So it was cool analyzing the data and cleaning that and all of that. And oh, sorry, what's going on? Okay. Through the statistical analysis, I found out that the measures that I used were actually good measures for Igbo language proficiency, which is ILP, and sense of belonging, which is SOB. But so far from the responses that I got, okay, sorry, I'm gonna rush through this so that I can get to the important parts. But yeah, so the meaning and importance of my results, I guess I've already started talking about that. So far, I have found a positive relationship between Igbo language proficiency and sense of belonging. So that's like great. But from the statistical analysis, it's not statistically significant. So I'm still collecting responses, and we're going to see how that goes. Yeah, and I guess strengths and limitations, it's not an experimental study. So for the non-researchers here, if it's not experimental, you can't really like say this causes this. I guess it's just like giving us an idea of what the relationship is. Yeah. And the significance of my study, it will add to like the literature out there on Igbo people, and also the relationship between like language proficiency and like identity formation, as well as like preserving cultures. Yeah, I think I have like my acknowledgements. That's it for me.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, last but not least, Chloe.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen. So I'm Chloe, and this is my project on investigating the role of Broca's area in hierarchical processing, and we're using a neurostimulation device called TMS. And I'm very lucky to have been mentored by Sonia, who's a graduate student at UCLA. So this is her experimental design, and I'm going to be briefly going over it for a general audience. And this is in conjunction or under the Monty Lab. So just to briefly go over, we were looking at hierarchical processing, and one example of hierarchical processing is theory of mind. And this is when you're able to ascribe the internal mental states or thoughts of others. And we know that language is also a hierarchical processing, but we don't know the specific relationship between language theory of mind and Broca's area. So Broca's area, or shortened for LPO, which is the scientific abbreviation, is on this picture in the right, and it has been famously identified as the language center. However, in this experiment, we are hypothesizing that Broca's area is involved in hierarchical processing and is not just language specific. And the other region that we also looked at is the temporal parietal junction, which is highlighted on the right, and we shortened it or abbreviated it as TPJ. And there's a picture of a TMS, of what a TMS device looks like on the left. So what we do is we apply inhibitory stimulation to either LPO, which is Broca's area, or TPJ, and we see how stimulation affects performance. And here is the experimental procedure. So first, the research team will conduct a phone screen to determine eligibility with the participant, and they'll also need to complete a cognitive baseline task above 50% accuracy before they can move on to session 2. And session 2 involves a 15-minute MRI structural brain imaging scan at Staglin Center. And then after this, sessions 3 and 4, or TMS session 1 and 2, is when the participant is actually stimulated with the TMS device. So they're asked to perform a language and theory of mind task, followed by a confidence survey. And this confidence survey is to have them reflect on their performance, self-reflect on their performance. Afterwards, we motor threshold the stimulatory threshold that we need to stimulate either Broca's area or TPJ. And then we do stimulate their brain. 5 minutes after stimulation, they perform the same task again, followed by the same confidence survey. So with this setup, we're able to see the within one participant's data, we can see how they perform before and after stimulation. And in session 4, that's when the participant is stimulated in the other brain area. So in session 3, they're stimulated in either Broca's area or TPJ. And in session 4, they're stimulated in the opposite brain region. So essentially, each participant is stimulated twice in both areas, and they perform the confidence survey and the cognitive task 4 times. And this is an example of what the participant would be asked to do. So in the theory of mind task, there's a low and high level, and the low and high level differ in the number of thought transferences. In the language task, there's also a high and low level, and again, it differs in the number of variables. So we would want the participant to be able to distinguish if the left column in the language task is equivalent to the right column in the language task, and if it's correct or incorrect. And these are dependent measures. So we looked at the participants' performance based off of reaction time and accuracy, and also looked at their confidence survey for potential unconscious processes that might have influenced their task performance. And this is one portion of our data that we found that was significant. So we were able to see that stimulating the TPJ significantly decreased reaction time. So that means that participants were faster in performance after they were stimulated, only in the low-level theory of mind reaction time. However, we did not see this in the high-level theory of mind reaction time, accuracy, and there was no significant effect of Broca's area. And I thought that this was very interesting as well. So one subject had misalignment between their actual performance and their perceived performance in the high-level language task. So you can see that these 2 rows are split across the brain regions for the same participant. And for TPJ stimulation, the participant rated their confidence score as a 4. So they were more confident, although they had lower accuracy and a longer reaction time than when they were stimulated in the LPO. So here they reported a confidence score of 2, which is much lower than the reported confidence score of 4 for TPJ stimulation, although they had an objective higher accuracy and also a faster reaction time in this task. So we think that and hypothesize that there might be a potential influence of unconscious processes in Broca's area. And we need to collect more data and continue on with our study. We're looking for a n equals 2 number of participants in the study so that we can uncover more about the relationship between hierarchical processing and Broca's area. And I also wanted to thank my mentors, so Sonia, Dr. Monty, and also Micah, and Dr. Johnson, for helping me put together this presentation, and also for their mentorship. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. So we now got a little flavor of everyone's research, which, you were able to successfully squish down into 5 minutes. Amazing. Good job, everyone. All right. So Now we're going to have some questions I'm going to ask. And let me see here. Okay, so the first thing I would like to ask is, how does your identity and your lived experiences inform your approach to knowledge and its production? Not everyone has to answer, so feel free, whoever wants to start first.
I can go first. I recently heard of the phrase or saying, I don't know what it's called, but like research is research. And it's basically like your research is about, actually, let me not lie, I can't really explain what it means, but I guess like to answer the question is just that like the research that I'm doing is so to the core of who I am because it's completely representative of like my community, and it's about like my people, and it's about the experiences of my people and also myself. So my research definitely has a great influence in the work that I'm doing. And my identity has a great impact in the work that I'm doing. And because I know how my participants are Igbo people, and I know how Igbo people are, so I understand how questions need to be framed for them to be able to understand it in our way, I guess, and also just like adjusting to that, but also maintaining the authenticity of doing like good research.
Personally, for me, there's not anyone else that I know of that looks like me in this field of research. So I'm Indonesian. I've been constantly mislabeled as other Asian races, but because no one in my family is involved in academia, no one in my closer community as well is involved in research, it's been very hard to find solidarity in these spaces. So it informs my approach to research because I know I have to try even harder. I don't have the background or the resources that some people may have had when they came into this field, but I know that I have had to have more initiative and self-motivation so that I can find people who are willing to help me and to give me the support that I need. So yeah, my identity informs how I approach research because I know that I need to try even harder to beat that system.
Great. Anyone else?
Also, so I'm a cancer survivor, so I've gone through the perspective of why these treatments and developing new therapies are beneficial, especially in children, where 4% of all cancer-funded research goes to pediatric cancer research. And this is an age where kids are developing, and they just, because their cancers are so rare, they just get put on the same protocol as adults, but with lower doses. And so the effects of these, it affects their development, their function, their life, So I think in especially life sciences, when so many experiments always fail, research can be very unmotivating and hard to keep going. But that my identity gives me the motivation to keep going and keep showing up in lab and working towards all the failure.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to move on to the next question. How does your field of research or discipline inform your approach to the kind of knowledge you produce? What are its possibilities and its limitations, or its limitations? So if you'd like to get us started.
I can start. So as a poli-sci major, there's this really big emphasis of trying to understand the importance of like how American politics works, but also the policy side of things. And with my minor, community engagement and social change, there is this emphasis and kind of need for more community engaged work with universities working with local agencies, and specifically with Los Angeles and our proximity to the houseless crisis going on. There's a lot of opportunities for us to try and get students more informed, and because finances are tight for college students, likewise, this is ways that we can create knowledge, but also in a way that engages students to feel comfortable and knowledgeable of how to interact with our unhoused community members. And I just think there's a lot of opportunities for students, because this isn't to any fault of their own. It's just the misconceptions and kind of news media and harmful rhetoric that sometimes politicians can play into when it comes to targeting marginalized groups. And so I think it's really important for us to kind of utilize our resources on campus and how we can like get students to be more informed about this ongoing crisis and the topics at hand.
I like how you mentioned that your discipline of political science can have that application with community groups. And I feel like that's something that I've thought about throughout my research project, since though I'm not attached to any specific field or discipline, that kind of informed my approach, in that I didn't want to conform to boundaries, whether those were disciplinary or artistic. And I more wanted to focus on the outcome. I like how you're focusing. It seems like everyone is focusing on these like tangible outcomes of what the knowledge and research could actually mean to them and mean to other people in society. And I kind of wanted to reject a field or academic discipline and more just focus on those outcomes, which were producing knowledge about temporal, physical, digital, and emotional boundaries and how they're interconnected mutually and malleable.
Anyone else?
I guess to quickly like summarize both, like with the limitations, of course, with research, there is this balance between making sure that we're not exploiting the groups that we're working with. It's about like respect and empathy and creating this ongoing partnership for people and community partners, so that they also know that, you know, the university is not just trying to use their name, like we're trying to enhance the knowledge together and working collectively as a whole to create a better society and to continue promoting change makers from our university and space.
Great, appreciate that. All right, so my next question is, in your research process, what kinds of challenges have you encountered, and how might these challenges have helped or hindered the knowledge that you produce? Who'd like to get started? All right.
I can go first. So I came in and I joined this lab in, I think my freshman year. And then some of the challenges I encountered was that, you know, school went online for me, so I wasn't able to participate really much besides just lab meetings. There are problems with my health, so that I had to stay back home and I couldn't go to school. But I think just the main challenge for me was, you know, learning how to do everything from scratch. The people in my lab are like PhDs and they've been through medical school or like graduate school and things like that. Whereas I'm just an undergrad who hasn't I haven't even finished the introductory biology courses. It's a little bit intimidating going in when everyone's an expert in their field and you're just there trying to get to like understand what's going on. But I think lab culture really comes into play there, and finding people that you can trust and you can ask these types of questions to. Now I'm kind of known in my lab as the person who asks a lot of questions, but because of it, I'm able to learn. I'm able to better understand what the project we're actually working on is. And in that way, I'm better able to understand myself and my body. So I think that creating new knowledge, I think without challenges, I don't see how that would happen. I think challenges and failure are kind of necessary to learn from.
I really agree with what Vivek just said. I really like that. Personally, for me, my own challenge was I applied to a research opportunity program at UCLA. It's called PROPS, so specifically for students in the psychology department. And I was very, very shocked when I got my acceptance. I was wondering why I was accepted to such a selective program. And when I walked into our seminar class, I realized that the reason why I was selected is because I didn't believe that I should. I realized that every other peer in my group was also wondering why they were accepted, and they felt that they had nothing to bring to the table. But we realized that we were all chosen for a reason. So we were able to collaborate together and really overcome the challenges that our research has given to us. So I guess my biggest challenge is believing that I would never be able to step into this field, because again, I've never seen anyone else who looks like me pursuing this sort of direction. But I think that when you realize that other people also feel the same way and you can form a connection with them, it also helps a lot as well.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to add on to that. I think believing in yourself is a really big part of this, and probably like anything in college. I actually had a professor come as a guest lecturer in one of my classes, and she was like, pediatric cancer patients almost never graduate college. They never get married. They have trouble finding a job and things like that. And so there's always going to be people out there who doubt you, right? But as long as you have a good support system and think believing in yourself, who's to tell you that you can't do something? So totally agree with Chloe.
Yeah, just to build off that, I think a big challenge I also experienced that relates is this experience of self-doubt. And I recall, like, in an interview, I was talking to a respondent about uncertainty, and he said that sometimes he has this self-doubt that shows up as uncertainty, but it's not really uncertainty, it's just self-doubt. And I think that doubting myself and doubting my abilities and doubting how the project would come out was one challenge. And another challenge was just the constraints of time and managing my research project with my other time commitments. And I'm sure other people can relate to that, but I feel like a way I overcome those challenges was by believing in myself, but also just observing this symbolism and interconnectedness within my research and within the world, and how my research shows up in my life shows up in my research, and just trusting that it will be enough at the end of the day.
Yeah, I guess, like, for me, like, sorry, do you want to go, or you could take turns now?
Go ahead.
Okay. I guess, like, challenges that I have encountered with my research specifically, because I'm a transfer student, there is this sort of wanting to help the community, but not necessarily having the lived experiences of being unhoused or facing, like, housing insecurity. And so there is this kind of, like, balance between wanting to make sure that the work that you're doing is helping the communities that you intend, and not trying to have this, like, outsider perspective of, like, saying, like, oh, well, I think I know best because X, Y, and Z. Like, there is this human component that you do have to work with the community members that you are helping. And just the dynamics too of, like, living in Santa Cruz, like, we do have a housing crisis as well, but just in a metropolitan city where there's 64,000 people any given time, like, experiencing housing insecurity or, like, living on the streets. Like, this is a whole new scale of it. And so it can be overwhelming, but I think mirroring what the other panelists had said is just believing in what you want to see contribute, and, like, how you can be a part of that, and just, you know, being on the right side of history is also another thing too.
Something that I wanted to add on to everything everyone has said is my own personal story of feeling like research was my thing, to be honest, and applying to the certain programs. And, like, I was expecting that I was gonna get in, so I didn't apply to some others. And then I didn't get in, but, like, I got into one, so I was able to eventually do my research. But I think that experience just taught me to, first of all, like, apply to everything and anything that you can, and, like, constantly put yourself out there. And, like, yes, like, have that faith in yourself, but don't sell yourself out for, like, other things that you could still do. Because honestly, you really never know. And lastly, I think everything really does work together for your best, like, the way that it's supposed to work out, because I don't know how my experience would have been in the other research programs that I wanted to get into. And I'm just grateful to be in the one that I am in. And I just really, really love research, and I think it's very enjoyable. And I think, like, besides that, like, trying what you can, but obviously not, like, overworking yourself and stuff.
Great. Yeah. Imposter syndrome is real, and it may not, it could last a long time. So persistence is your friend. Really appreciate this conversation. Okay. So my last question is, how have you managed to maintain balance, if any, and avoid burnout as you worked on your research in addition to your other responsibilities?
I actually love this question so much because at the beginning of every quarter, like I make my schedule for the week. And literally at the beginning of this quarter, because I've been doing this since like my freshman year and I'm in my third year now, I was like, oh my God, is this my life? Like, why is this my life? Like, there's just so much on the, like I put almost every single thing on my calendar and I'm just like, this is so many things to do. And like I have a wide variety of interests. So there's like so many things to do. But I think something that I've learned this year is prioritizing rest. And taking, even if it's a day, even if you think that you might be stressed the next day because you do this, but I think taking a day and not doing anything and being like, this is the day that I'm not going to do anything, and giving your body that space for rest, I think it's really, really important. I saw this video or something about like a lot of people, maybe not a lot, but like some people who procrastinate, it's because they're actually like overachievers and they work so hard. And so when they finally give their bodies space and time to rest, they kind of go into survival mode and they're like, oh, I don't know when I'm going to be able to rest again, so I'm just going to keep resting. So I guess just being conscious of that and being kind to yourself and being kind to your body and being like, okay, we're going to like work at this time and I promise we're going to have this time to rest, so that your body like trusts you and is like, yeah, I'm going to rest at this time. And yeah.
I love that. I just remembered a quote that said, if you don't take rest, then your body will rest for you. So if you don't take that initiative, then you're going to get very sick. I remember at some point during this quarter, I would go to Pritzker, which is the psychology building, 3 times a day. I spent most of my time just going there for lab. But I think one way that I deal with burnout is that I tell myself I will be working on this for 1 hour or 1.5 hours, no more than that, and then I'll take a 15-minute break, just to set myself back. I have to remind myself to eat, to self-care, but I think that giving yourself small breaks and then also telling yourself that you're not wasting time when you're taking care of yourself is how I avoid burnout.
I think for one of the things that works for me is that taking breaks like everyone else said, so not going in a lab 5 days a week, or not working on the same thing in a row 5 days or 5 days a week, but also talking to other people. So for me, maybe it's going in the hospital and talking to patients as a survivor now. That's really motivating, and kind of appreciating like where we are right now, how far we've come, not in terms of like, in terms of going to college is a big deal, surviving till this age, having a good support system. I think it's really important to also appreciate everything that you have, but also seeing the people that you're working for and seeing the impact that you're trying to make always is a good reminder.
Yeah, I guess to just like mirror that, like we do have to be proud of like how far we've come, and it can be really hard just at UCLA because, #1 public university, but like as a first gen and transfer student, it's just like you are enough. And it's just also saying like you're just paving the way for like your family or your siblings or whoever's like kind of looking up to you. So yeah, just like believing in yourself, and just wanted to throw that in there with my own experience too.
I really also wanted to add, like I read the question again and it was like, how have you managed to maintain balance? Honestly, I don't think I have maintained balance. And I think something that has helped me is like embracing the chaos, like embracing the fact that, oh, I have 1,000,001 things to do. I know I've had days where like I have so many things to do and I'm just thinking about all the things that I have to do. And I'm like on TikTok scrolling and I'm like, dang, I have this to do, I have that to do. But like, I think that is literally procrastination. Literally procrastination. And I think you just have to write it all down and start somewhere. And I think something that also encourages me is I look at my calendar and I yell, but this is actually like, this is way too much, but I'm like, after this day, I'm gonna be done with this thing. I'm gonna be done with this thing. And like for my research specifically, I spent quite a long time cleaning my data recently, and I'm gonna kind of have to do a very similar process again. But I think what helped me push through is knowing that the work that I'm doing is actually important. Like, it's not just for me and it's not just about me. It's about a whole lot of people, and it's about future generations and things like that. So constantly reminding yourself about your why, I guess, for the things that you're doing. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. All right. So we're almost at the hour, but we started a little bit late. I'd like to leave the rest of the few minutes we have to see if anyone from the audience might have questions. So I will, let's just see. Anyone have questions? You're welcome to either unmute yourself or you can put them in the chat. That was my cat who just wanted to congratulate.
I see a question. I really like this question.
Me too.
So yeah, Jacqueline asked, can you talk about the role of your mentor in this research? I would not be here without any of my mentors or my peers. I always say, even starting from my resume just to apply into this lab, I would not be here without them. And I think of mentor as more than just a PI. I think of it as my graduate student or my peer who has more experience than me. I really wouldn't be here without them today. So I always want to thank them, and what they've given to me, I also want to share with you know, the underclassmen, and hope that I can continue what they've given to me.
Yeah, building off of that, I also feel very grateful for my mentor. A large portion of my research references and discusses my psychiatric hospitalization and how that's connected to the topics. And when I was in that facility, I got to read, they confiscated my phone and laptop, but I had a book and I was able to read a book of poems published by my mentor. And though he's cited in all these academic journals, it was that poetry that really stuck with me in those moments, and him inspiring me through publishing that and through publishing other work and encouraging and supporting me really helped to shape this project. And I like that question because I think it shows how, even though we're the people presenting and speaking here, research is really not about one individual's accomplishments. It's about like communal collaboration and building off of each other and sharing ideas and encouraging and inspiring and supporting communities.
I also want to say a mentor doesn't mean that you click with someone instantly. And at least for me, I had kind of difficulty fitting into my lab and finding someone who I can consistently rely on. But then over time, you know, that trust was built and that relationship was kind of strengthened. So I don't think a mentor has to be someone that from day one has been supporting you, but it can also be something that develops into someone supporting you and you supporting them.
My mentor is also my professor too for the community engagement and social change capstone project. And she goes above and beyond and has just been, you know, with me every step, if that means like rescheduling office hours for her students, helping us with the slides. It's just really having trust with somebody and really allowing them to see the vision, and then having those people who will support you no matter what. And even if that means like advocating on your behalf, if you're not getting the sort of attention that your project deserves. And I think the role of a mentor too should be like a role model as well. And I just also think that people should just not be afraid to like reach out, and just, even if that means sending an email, to someone that you're interested in, like it could create a lot of open doors for you as well.
I would definitely also love to give so much praise and so much gratitude to my mentor, Dr. Ugo. She is so brilliant and so wonderful and so kind, and she gives me much more of her time than I expect. And I'm just so grateful for how open she is to like all my questions and all my requests. And like has just been guiding me throughout my research. And my research is in the psychology department because I'm in the psychology department, and like that's the discipline that I'm conducting my research through. But Dr. Ugo is in the African American Studies department, and she's also an anthropologist. But like her research ties very well into mine because she understands how conducting research with Nigerian people is. And I can definitely see that very well in how she helps me approach the work that I do. And she's just, I think her support just exemplifies, I think, what every one of us really needs, like in our lives, like someone who is there and like rooting for you, even sometimes when like you're scared and you're not sure about like what you're doing or like if you're gonna get through it. Like it's really great to have someone there like in your corner, and my mentor is definitely that person for me, or one of those people, because I have like a cheer squad.
All right, great. I think this is a great point to end our session. This is a very dynamic session. I've learned a lot from you all. You know, I'm really excited to see how your research continues to evolve. And yes, if everyone can give a virtual round of applause, that would be wonderful. Let me go ahead and yeah, okay. Let me, how do I end? Okay, I'll do that later. But thank you so much for coming. And I wish you all the best, and please continue to, you know, this whole week is undergraduate research week, so please attend the presentations. Each of these presenters have their own as well, in addition to this great roundtable. So thanks again, everyone. Take care.